By the middle of the 1800s, the future of Burma was looking quite bleak. The British had for the past half-century been steadily gobbling up parts of the country, turning it from a regional great power into a nation ripe for annexation. But the reign of King Mindon Min would for a time change that. Under his rule, the country experienced a period of reform and cultural flowering, which is often remembered as the last golden age. Mindon had been born back in 1808 and was the son of King Tharawadi. After the loss of the Second Anglo-Burmese War in 1852, he, along with his younger brother Kanaung, managed to depose the unpopular King Pagan. And now that he was the one in charge, Mindon's first order of business was to sign a peace with the British. He tried unsuccessfully to negotiate for the return of occupied Lower Burma and was eventually forced to accept being cut off from the sea, as well as losing some of the richest teak forests and rice-growing regions in the country. Mindon would, throughout his reign, be very careful not to provoke the British again. An example of that would be him signing a commercial treaty in 1867, giving them generous economic benefits. After the war, King Mindon would go on to found the last royal capital of Burma, Mandalay. There he built many palaces and monasteries, and he aspired to make the city a center of Buddhist learning. Towards that goal, he held the 5th Buddhist Council there in 1871, the previous one being held over 1500 years earlier in the 1st century AD. The objective of the council was to see if any of the teachings of Gautama Buddha had been altered. In order to find that out, 3 elder monks accompanied by 2,400 others recited all the teachings of the Buddha and examined them in minute detail, a process which took them 5 months to complete. The 5th Buddhist Council, however, is not generally recognized outside of Burma, as very few other countries were involved in it. Nonetheless, it gained him a lot of admiration from his people. Mindon's interest in religion also led him to create the world's largest book, consisting of 729 pages of Buddhist Pali Canon inscribed into marble. Each page, so to speak, is housed in its own little stupa at the Katodar Pagoda in Mandalay. However, this project had already been finished by the time the council was held, so let's hope he didn't have to change any of it. But while Mindon was an avid promoter of religion and culture, it was his brother Kanaung who would emerge as a great administrator and reformer. He sent scholars to France, Italy, the United States, and Britain, where they studied the tremendous progress achieved by the Industrial Revolution. Realizing that Burma would have to modernize its military to survive, the prince hoped to, among other things, use these lessons to establish an up-to-date arms industry. His enthusiasm can be seen in stories about him. It is, for example, said that he would go to the factories early on cold winter mornings with a blanket wrapped around him, just to talk to the mechanics about how the machines ran. But his desire for reform wasn't limited to production, and under his guidance, the government was centralized, fixed salaries for bureaucrats were introduced, the financial system was reorganized, machine-struck coins were introduced, as well as police forces and much more. His contributions, however, would all come to an end on the 2nd of August 1866, when an unsuccessful palace coup was orchestrated by 2 of Mindon's sons, who were jealous for not being named successors. During the tumult, the king is said to have run into the very person who was assigned to assassinate him, but upon encountering the king face to face, the would-be assassin dropped his sword and kneeled before him from force of habit. The assassin then supposedly offered the king a piggyback ride to the barracks where loyal guards were stationed. However, Kanaung was not as fortunate, and he is said to have died trying to give the king time to escape. The crown prince was also killed, and the 2 princes behind the coup fled to British Burma, where they were granted asylum. It's thought that the British, along by the modernization of Burma's army, had supported the rebellion. After this incident, Mindon would never again name a successor. He would spend his remaining years continuing to modernize the country without his brother. With the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, the king assembled a fleet of steamships to facilitate trade with the British. 4 years later, he made another noteworthy achievement by enacting the 17 Articles, one of Southeast Asia's first press freedom laws, not counting the European colonies. He would also continue to build roads and even establish a telegraph system. Just like with King Bajida, though, the last years of his reign would see one of his queens, Symbiomachine, grow dominant. As King Mindon was lying on his deathbed, the queen invited his children to the palace, claiming that he wanted to bid them farewell. What followed was a massacre, as close royals of all ages and genders were mercilessly executed. The only potential heir left was Prince Tiba, the son-in-law of Simbio Machine. As Mindon Min drew his last breath on the 1st of October 1878, Tiba became the new ruler of Burma.